The Galactic Senate chamber buzzed with conversation, filling the grand hall with echoes of confident voices debating the prospect of a new conquest. Their target, Earth, a seemingly insignificant blue planet on the edge of their mapped territories. Many council members laughed, mocking the primitive species that inhabited it. To them, this was just another step in expanding the empire, a small challenge if that. But one voice rose above the others, silencing the crowd. It was General Karin, a seasoned military leader known for his strategic genius and ruthless pragmatism. He rarely spoke in such forums, preferring action to words, but this time, his tone held an unmistakable urgency that demanded attention. "You're all making a grave mistake," he began, his deep-set eyes scanning the room, holding each council member's gaze. "You think Earth is just another conquest? That humans are merely a weaker, undeveloped species? You're wrong." The murmurs faded into silence as Karin continued, his voice resonating with the weight of countless battles fought and lives lost. "I've seen Deathworlders before, species that grow in environments hostile to life itself. Worlds that crush the weak and nurture only those strong enough to survive." His gaze hardened. "Earth is one such place. And humans, they're different from anything we've encountered." An audible scoff echoed from a council member in the back, but Karin ignored it. He stepped forward, his presence radiating authority. "Earth may look calm from a distance, but it's a world of brutal climates, relentless predators, and constant natural upheavals. Yet humans have adapted. They've not only survived but thrived, overcoming conditions that would drive most species to extinction." A few counselors shifted uneasily in their seats, and Karin pressed on. "These humans are resilient. They possess a tenacity and adaptability that is unparalleled. To underestimate them would be a fatal error. I've seen their historical records, stories of conflicts, of enduring hardships, of an unbreakable spirit. When pressed, they unite, becoming a force stronger than any individual." He paused, allowing his words to sink in, his intense gaze sweeping over the assembly. "You think they're primitive because they lack our technology, because they haven't yet traveled the stars. But I tell you, humans are not limited by what they don't have. They are driven by what they can achieve. And when they do, their potential is boundless." Karin's tone grew colder, sharper, each word landing like a blade on the attentive audience. "There's a fire in them, a drive that fuels every advancement they make. They have transformed their world in mere centuries, achieving what took other species millennia. They learn fast, they adapt faster, and once they set their minds to a task, they do not give up." The counselors listened, some dismissive, others with growing discomfort. Karin's voice dropped to a menacing calm. "Humans do not know when to quit. They fight with a ferocity and ingenuity that defies conventional logic. In battle, they have turned the tide with strategies that defy prediction, outmaneuvering and outlasting enemies who believe themselves superior." One of the counselors dared to interject, questioning why such a relatively new species should pose any threat. Karin's eyes narrowed, his patience thinning. "It is precisely their novelty, their adaptability, that makes them dangerous. In the face of overwhelming odds, they do not falter. They innovate. They find ways to bridge gaps, to compensate for weaknesses. They are not bound by tradition or protocol. They will use any tool, any tactic, to secure victory." The general's words left an uncomfortable silence in the room, a tense atmosphere that hadn't been there at the start of the meeting. Karin's voice softened, but his tone remained firm. "If we wage war on Earth, they will not cower. They will fight us with everything they have, everything they can create. And even if they seem outmatched, even if they suffer losses, they will come back, stronger and more determined. Humans do not surrender. To them, every defeat is just another lesson learned." He looked around the room, his gaze lingering on each face, daring anyone to dismiss him. "I do not bring this warning lightly. I have faced many adversaries in my lifetime, and I have never seen a species quite like them. They may be new to the galaxy, but that only makes them more unpredictable. Their potential is something we cannot measure or control." A faint murmur rippled through the assembly, the confidence that once filled the chamber now laced with doubt. Karin's final words came as a quiet, unyielding statement. If we go to war with humanity, we will not face a conventional enemy. We will face a relentless force, one that could ultimately dismantle our empire if provoked. Underestimate them at your peril. With that, Karan stepped back, leaving his warning hanging heavily in the air, a stark reminder of the unforeseen risks of underestimating Earth and its inhabitants. The general let his words settle before continuing, aware that skepticism still lingered in the room. He took a breath, his tone shifting from the urgent warning to a quieter, yet equally intense narrative as he began explaining why humans were different, and how their qualities set them apart from any species the Empire had encountered. Humans evolved on a world that forced them to adapt to extremes, he began. Their history is filled with hardships that would crush most species. They faced predators, natural disasters, and wars of their own making, yet each challenge only made them stronger, more resilient. He paused, glancing at the counselors. Humans have this unique ability to overcome. They treat adversity not as a barrier but as a stepping stone to their next achievement. He began recounting the intelligence reports he had studied about Earth's history. They're not a people of one mind, nor a single culture. They've been divided by language, beliefs, territories, and yet they consistently find ways to unite when faced with a common enemy. Their ability to bond, even with those vastly different from themselves, is something our empire cannot replicate. It's why they are so formidable when threatened. The general continued, his voice unwavering. Their technological advancement is nothing short of remarkable. In a few hundred years, they've moved from primitive tools to complex machinery, from seeing the stars and mists to reaching for them in reality. This is a species that, once it sets a goal, relentlessly pursues it, no matter how impossible it seems. They've learned to manipulate their environment, to adapt to any situation, any climate, turning inhospitable places into their homes. There was a flicker of interest in the eyes of some council members as the general leaned in, emphasizing his next point. Humans think differently. Where we rely on strategy or brute force, they're driven by creativity and resourcefulness. They invent solutions where others see only problems. In their hands, a simple tool becomes a weapon, a shield, a device of endless potential. He watched their expressions, sensing some understanding starting to form. Humans aren't bound by protocol. They aren't restrained by rigid codes of honor or preset strategies. In warfare, this makes them dangerously unpredictable. They adapt on the fly, innovate under pressure, and do so without hesitation. A situation they've never encountered is simply a challenge waiting to be overcome. His tone turned graver as he spoke about another aspect he noticed in humans: their relentless drive. They don't give up. When they face loss or defeat, they come back with twice the force. They learn from their mistakes, quickly and thoroughly. For humans, failure is not an end but a lesson. Each setback only strengthens their resolve, makes them more determined. We've seen them rise from situations that would have broken most species. He continued. They possess a unique form of unity. They may bicker, they may clash, but under threat they rally together. I've seen reports of their past wars, conflicts where they managed to set aside differences, even ancient grudges, just to survive and fight back. This unity, this strength in numbers, is not something we've ever encountered at such a level. It's what makes them unpredictable and frankly unstoppable when they choose to be. The general looked around, noting the skepticism had faded into a thoughtful silence. Some might call them primitive, even savage. But it's that very willingness to confront the brutal aspects of their nature that sets them apart. They don't hide from violence, from the darker sides of survival. They understand it, they wield it, and they do so with a calculated ferocity. They've transformed the art of survival into a science, and their tenacity drives them further with every conflict. He drew a breath, the weight of his words deliberate. We rely on technology, on the sheer scale of our resources and our armies. But humans, they rely on something far more unpredictable, their spirit. That indomitable force within them that refuses to yield, no matter the odds. They see obstacles as challenges, weaknesses as opportunities to grow stronger. They thrive under pressure and, unlike any other species I've seen, they embrace change. They aren't afraid to evolve, to transform. The general's voice softened, though his words remained as impactful. They've lived in a world of unpredictability and chaos for as long as their kind can remember. They're not only survivors, they're innovators, builders, and fighters. They create alliances, find common ground, and turn the simplest resources into formidable tools. This adaptability isn't just a skill for them, it's instinctive, a part of who they are. Every human is a survivor, every human is a fighter, and every human has within them the potential to become a force beyond our understanding. A quiet tension filled the room as he finished, his warning now grounded in solid evidence and tangible examples. If you still doubt the risk of underestimating humans, remember this: their strength lies in their unity, their resilience, and their refusal to be conquered. They do not falter under pressure, they rise. The general stepped back, his gaze unwavering as he looked around the room. Consider carefully what you're choosing to provoke, for if we challenge them, we will face not just a species but an unbreakable will. The general's gaze remained steady as he prepared to recount an encounter with humans that had left a lasting impact, both on him and his entire fleet. He had been part of a mission meant to establish control over a resource-rich territory, only to discover a human presence there, a small group, vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Victory should have been assured. But the humans had a way of turning assumptions into errors, and errors into something far more dangerous. The initial confrontation had seemed routine. The humans, lacking the Empire's advanced technology, looked like nothing more than a minor obstacle. The general's forces had moved in confidently, surrounding them, expecting compliance, or a quick surrender. Instead, the humans responded with something he hadn't anticipated: a calculated, fearless defense that defied logic. They didn't hesitate. They didn't retreat. Instead, they set traps, using the terrain as if it were an extension of themselves. Even the general, seasoned as he was, found himself caught off guard. The humans utilized every resource available. They turned debris and the natural landscape into weapons, using tactics his soldiers had never encountered before. Rocks became projectiles, structural ruins became ambush points, and small arms fire became a deadly, calculated diversion. The humans maneuvered with an instinct for survival that bordered on predatory, drawing his forces in and then striking at their flanks, unyielding and fearless in their defiance. The general couldn't help but admire the sheer ingenuity they displayed. Even as his forces closed in, the humans refused to be cornered, moving with a coordinated precision that spoke to an almost primal understanding of warfare. They communicated through subtle gestures, quick glances, and silent signals, an unspoken bond that turned their small unit into a formidable force. It was as if they knew, on some instinctive level, that survival required them to act as one organism, each part anticipating the needs of the others. In one particularly intense moment, his forces had managed to isolate a single human, cutting them off from their group. But instead of surrendering or retreating, the human had fought back with a ferocity that defied reason. The human's every move had been calculated, every strike intentional, forcing his soldiers into a defensive stance, something they had never expected from such a technologically inferior opponent. And as if summoned by some unseen signal, the humans' comrades had returned, rescuing their own with a precision strike that had thrown his forces into disarray. The general recalled how his soldiers had started to hesitate, uncertainty seeping into their movements. His warriors, veterans of countless battles, had found themselves unnerved by the humans' tactics, by their unyielding courage. They weren't simply fighting to survive, they fought as though the idea of surrender was something that didn't even exist in their minds. For every inch the Empire's forces gained, the humans pushed back, twice as hard, twice as relentless. What had left the deepest impression, though, was their creativity in the heat of battle. When his soldiers tried overwhelming them with firepower, the humans had countered by creating diversions that stretched his forces thin. One soldier had used a simple reflective surface to signal across distances, orchestrating a strategy that drew his troops into a carefully laid trap. They adapted with astonishing speed, learning his soldiers' patterns and exploiting every weakness, no matter how small. The general realized then that humans didn't fight like other species. They fought as if each skirmish was a test, as if each obstacle was an opportunity to grow stronger, to understand their enemy on a deeper level. His forces, trained to rely on superior weaponry and numbers, found themselves facing an opponent who saw war not as a straightforward conflict but as a complex puzzle, one they seemed determined to solve at any cost. But it wasn't just their tactics that left an impact. It was the resilience they displayed after each setback, each injury. He had watched, astonished, as wounded humans continued to press forward, using their injuries as motivation rather than a reason to retreat. They fought with an intensity that seemed fueled by something beyond mere survival, a deeper drive, a defiance that refused to be extinguished. Every time his soldiers thought they'd broken the humans' morale, they had been wrong. The humans simply regrouped, adapted, and came back stronger, more coordinated, and more relentless. The general finished recounting this encounter, his voice quiet but filled with a deep respect that had grown from that experience. "They are not just soldiers," he told the silent council. "They are survivors, innovators, warriors who treat each battle as if it's their last, and in doing so, they make each moment count. They see a fight as something personal, something to be conquered through sheer will." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "I have faced countless species, many far more advanced, others with physical prowess that would leave a human in awe. But none, have fought with the sheer determination, the creative ferocity, that humans bring to the battlefield. To them, war is not just about victory, it's about proving that they cannot, and will not, be dominated." In that moment, the counselors seemed to grasp the magnitude of the general's words. Humans were not simply another species to conquer. They were a force of nature, a phenomenon that couldn't be explained away by traditional tactics or sheer force. They were something unpredictable, something adaptive, something that would push any invader to their absolute limit. And the general knew, with certainty, that underestimating them would be a mistake the Empire might not survive. The silence in the chamber was heavy, but the tension still hung in the air, thick with disbelief and resistance. Counselors exchanged glances, some skeptical, others visibly unsettled by the general's words. Yet, despite the clear warning he delivered, many of them remained stubborn, dismissing his account as exaggeration, perhaps a product of too many battles. One counselor broke the silence, his voice dismissive. "With all due respect, General, humans are a young species. They lack the technology, the experience, the numbers to pose any real threat to the Empire. Whatever resilience they have can't compare to the sheer might of our forces." Others nodded, voices murmuring their agreement, some amused by the idea of taking this warning seriously. The general's expression didn't change, but his voice took on a weight of finality. "You think I speak out of caution? Out of fear? No. I speak from knowledge. If we underestimate them, we will pay a price we cannot afford." His gaze swept across the assembly, each word sharp, uncompromising. "Humanity has a resilience, a resolve that we do not understand. It is easy to mock them now, to believe them weak because they lack our technology. But technology is not the only weapon in a fight. It is spirit, determination, and above all, adaptability that decide the outcome of wars." He paused, letting the silence emphasize his words. "Consider this, if they are this formidable while young, still emerging on the galactic stage, what will they become when they have time to grow? When they have time to learn? In a century, will they be our rivals? In 2 centuries, our equals? Perhaps one day our conquerors?" His voice held no malice, only a grim understanding. "We may think ourselves invincible, but invincibility breeds arrogance, and arrogance blinds." A ripple of unease spread through the council, some of them shifting in their seats as the weight of his words settled over them. But still, a voice from the back challenged him. "These are just hypotheticals, General. Humans are an anomaly, perhaps, but hardly a threat. They are no more than an insect compared to the Empire's might." The general's gaze hardened, his patience thinning. "I have seen species like ours fall to those we once considered insignificant. Empires can crumble, not by brute force alone but by the slow erosion of what they think is unbreakable." His tone was edged with the finality of a battle-hardened truth. "The humans do not need to defeat us in open battle. They need only survive. They need only to resist, to endure, until the cracks in our armor begin to show. He continued, his words unyielding. Humanity will not fight like other species, seeking glory or conquest. They will fight to live, and that, counselors, is the most dangerous reason of all. They will fight with a desperation we cannot match because they know what it means to live on the edge of extinction. Every moment of resistance will be a testament to their refusal to be subdued. The room was silent now, every counselor's attention fully focused, the dismissive murmurs fading into quiet reflection. The general looked around, and when he spoke again, his voice was soft but filled with a dark certainty. If we provoke them, they will fight with a fury that will spread. Our empire's strength lies in its unity, in its perceived invincibility. But humanity's spirit has the power to shatter that perception. If they survive our attack, if they resist, it will inspire others. They will see that our power can be challenged, that our rule is not absolute. The general straightened, his tone taking on the weight of prophecy. Mark my words, they will not just defend themselves, they will ignite something greater. A spark that could fan into a blaze, spreading to every corner of our empire. Others who have suffered under our rule, those who remained silent out of fear, will find courage in humanity's defiance. The very act of resisting us, of standing their ground, will be enough to stir the hearts of those who've given up hope. He leaned forward, emphasizing his point. An empire as vast as ours is not brought down by a single battle, a single loss. It falls through 1,000 small cuts, through the rise of small, unyielding fires that spread from one world to another. If we choose to attack, we may find that humanity's resistance is not just a battle, it's the beginning of a reckoning. The finality of his words left the chamber in a thick silence. Each counselor seemed lost in thought, grappling with the reality that the general's warning painted. Yet some could still not believe. Voices of dissent lingered, whispers that humanity could still be crushed, that their warning was mere fearmongering. Seeing this, the general closed his eyes for a brief moment, and when he opened them, there was a hardened look in his gaze, a resolve forged from experience. You may think my words are exaggerated, that I overestimate these humans. But I do not speak from speculation. I have seen their will, their adaptability. And I have watched, time and again, as arrogance led to downfall. His tone softened but held a deep solemnity. If we choose this path, then know this, we may start a war, but we will not be the ones to end it. He straightened, his eyes meeting the gaze of each counselor, daring them to dismiss him. Think carefully before casting your votes. For if you choose to ignore this warning, you may find that our empire's greatest enemy is not humanity itself, but our own blindness to the strength that hides within them. And if we awaken that strength, if we force it to the surface, there will be no going back. The general's voice dropped, his words a final warning, spoken with the gravitas of one who has seen the end of battles, the ruins of empires, the cost of arrogance. They will fight with fire and fury. And when they do, even the stars will tremble.